Today, in this Thanksgiving special, we're going to look at one of the most familiar stories in American history and pull out the legacy lessons most people miss. Because Thanksgiving, before it was turkey, parades, and football, was a story about survival, community, humility, faith, generational planning, and shared responsibility. It was, in many ways, the first American family governance meeting. Let's get into it.
But the first real Thanksgiving didn't necessarily start with a huge abundance necessarily in terms of maybe how we would define that today. As people gather this year, like I said, it's a mixed bag. Some people don't look forward to coming. There's this power that comes in thankfulness and gratitude that gives the community, the group of people going forward in this vision, the purpose and the drive and the strength to continue forward when there's thankfulness in spite of the hardships and the obstacles. Welcome back to the Legacy Life podcast for this special Thanksgiving episode. It's one of my most exciting times of the year, but we're glad you're here with us. If you could hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, we have a new episode every Monday. We'd love to have you along on this journey with us. This is one of my favorite times of the year, and it's also the time of year that always seems to sneak up on me.
Yeah, just
like I anticipate,
happens.
I'm like, oh, it's coming up, and then suddenly it's here, and I don't know where the last 4 or 5 weeks went.
Yep, that's typically how it goes, but it is my favorite holiday.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I have fond memories of Thanksgivings of all different kinds and shapes growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in a broken home, so there's Thanksgivings in different places,
Yep.
Shared places,
Mm-hmm.
different years. But I also can remember like the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday times up at my grandmother's place if we ever got to celebrate with her. I can remember distinctly. It's always the smells. There is this bed and breakfast that your mom and I discovered years ago when we were first married up in White Cloud, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And you walked in, and it was one of those places that had like the old knickknacks. It had like that log cabin feel, but it was it's a pretty large establishment. But it had the distinct smell of baked goods and different things. And every time I'd walk in there, the smell memory would bring me back to my grandmother's house because it just reminded me exactly how she decorated,
Yeah, that makes
what it
sense.
smelled like.
Mm-hmm.
And, just that brought back warm feelings.
Yeah, of course it did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We've been here for the last, 3 or 4 episodes talking about looking at families who had planned generationally and in how did they do it? What was their philosophy? How did they approach it? We've kind of started dissecting some of that and looking at the research.
Exactly.
And I thought for Thanksgiving, it'd be kind of cool to maybe sit down and just talk a little bit about, I think kind of like from kind of a national kind of perspective, this holiday we celebrate in a way is kind of a generational thing that we as Americans participate in.
Yeah, most definitely.
And so we tend to look at the story of Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims and the hats with the buckles, maybe, though I think those were the Puritans. I forget who wore them, but
right.
Maybe they had cool hats. I'm not sure.
Maybe, yeah.
We picture that and a table full of food and really, but the first real Thanksgiving didn't necessarily start with a huge abundance necessarily in terms of maybe how we would define that today.
Sure.
Because it did start, that journey, excuse me, started with a lot of loss and uncertainty, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think it started with people who were trying to build something for generations that they themselves didn't feel like they were able to get. They were fleeing from what they considered religious persecution and not having a place where they could worship God freely and have a place where they just were able to have liberty in their lives.
Yeah.
And so they went on this fantastic voyage. I mean, that when I go back and read the stories of what, before they even got to the Americas,
Right.
what they went through on the boat to get here, it's it's an amazing story.
Yeah.
It's a very moving story in that way. So, the Thanksgiving, not just a holiday, but when you look at the whole experience that got to that first Thanksgiving table, if you will, everything that happened prior to that moment, it's a blueprint for true wealth. I think it's a blueprint for true good values, family unity, how to steward opportunity, and how to build and put in motion a legacy.
Yeah.
Because I think legacy was on their mind, though they probably had no idea what the ultimate impact would be.
I'm sure those people on the boat had no idea what America would become when they were, voyaging over here. They had no idea.
It's kind of like all ideas where you start with saying, well, if I can get on a boat and I can find a place just to put my family so we can just worship God together and survive and maybe build a life and maybe grow some crops, right? It starts real small.
Yeah.
Right?
A mustard seed, if you will.
A mustard seed, if you will, yeah. Because obviously you're not going to cross the ocean for comfort.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, they didn't
There's
have...
no development.
There was no telephone. Hey, we're coming over. What can we expect when we get there?
Yep.
Right? And they weren't necessarily doing it for wealth. They didn't even know if they would be able to survive. And the people on the boat, not all of them did even make it to the other side.
Nope.
Right?
Mm-mm.
But there was a vision in them that was strong enough to endure those type of storms. The scarcity, because you only have limited supplies. There was true storms, not just metaphorically, but I don't do well on boats when there's a lot of waves.
Yeah.
I remember there's that ferry that goes across from Ludington to Wisconsin and back and forth, and I remember doing that back in the late 90s.
Okay.
And you can we had a group of kids and we drove vans onto the ferry and we're coming across. And on the boat, they're like, hey, there's this movie theater in the boat. Let's go watch a movie. Well, it's a 4-hour trip. Oh, yeah, cool. So I go in there and I'm sitting and I'm watching the movie and I'm like, oh, this isn't going well.
Yeah.
So I had to go outside and look at something else and get some fresh air.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine across the Atlantic, and, they weren't steamships or Titanics, though maybe Titanic's not a great choice.
Nope. They were big old rockers.
Right. And then they land in the brutal winter of the Northeast.
Yeah.
As we all know in the Midwest, what that can be like.
Yep.
And, half of them didn't survive.
Yeah.
So I look at that and I'm like, when it comes to planning, having a vision for family legacy, maybe people might think I'm being dramatic here, but, there needs to be a clear, compelling vision. That's worth sacrificing for.
Right.
Even
if you
don't
would find necessarily know what it will turn into.
Exactly. There's just something in you that knows, no, this is who we are. This is what we're about. This is where we're going. And we trust the results into higher capable hands. And I think that's where their heads were at, if you will, in their hearts.
Yeah.
They trusted in God, that they knew that they were in his hands and they trusted him for the results.
Yep.
And that was worth some of their lives.
Yeah.
So vision like that is usually, I don't know, in all the stories, I don't know how many movies we have to make about it, but it's always born out of like hardship of some sort.
Yep.
It's never point A, point B, straight line up. It's, if you had to draw it out, it probably wouldn't look like a great art project.
Yep.
Squiggle lines everywhere, left turns, right turns. So vision usually starts in struggle with a strong purpose, and then as long as you don't quit, there's this outcome that comes. And I think on Thanksgiving, one verse I think of a lot is like Thanksgiving, the word thankfulness is kind of like that foundation. That's kind of like the doorway into this place where you can, I don't know how to describe it. There's this power that comes in thankfulness and gratitude that gives the community, the group of people going forward in this vision, the purpose and the drive and this strength to continue forward when there's thankfulness in spite of the hardships and the oppositions. And
there's like the way it works in your brain. I remember reading about this one time, but the like part of your brain that has relatively like negative emotions
Yeah.
cannot operate at the same time as the part of your brain that like regulates like thankfulness. And so if you're being thankful,
It shuts the other part
it
down.
shuts the other part down of your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your mom was telling me something similar the other day about it, which I think is like a great kind of principle to say. Well, you know, if you're in that part of your brain that is struggling with those negative emotions, as you just brought up, you have a go-to that you know is going to help take care of. You know, and so there's a place to go. And you know what? If we're going through something bad, someone else has got it worse somewhere.
Right.
Right. You know, always. And so, you know, people listening today, when they think about, you know, coming together as families, this can be a mixed bag of how people feel about it.
Yep.
You know, if you're in a place where you feel like in your family legacy, you know, we're not where we want to be yet or something like that, congratulations, you're probably where most feel that way.
Yep.
It's not about being or arriving. It's about the journey and continuing forward in spite of it, because there's something greater in your purpose and vision than what's immediately happening in front of you, maybe.
Yeah, of course.
Though there are things to celebrate too, but
Yeah.
so I thought too, as I'm looking at this story, I thought another thing that came out I thought was good is how these people learned that true legacy required this thing called interdependence and not just independence.
Okay.
You know, the Pilgrims did not survive alone,
Yeah.
right? They needed partnership. They needed community. In fact, when they first arrived, they tried this social experiment of having this group farm where they would all grow crops together, one big farm, everyone would just share. And they had this one common house where all the crops would be and everyone could just share, right? And that first winter, you know, half of them died. Because in that kind of an arrangement, not everyone was incentivized to help grow the crops.
Yep.
So they made a change. They said, okay, we're going to give everyone their own land. We're going to all grow our own crops. And they all survived and began to thrive when they turned it into that. But they had to learn to depend on each other, but still have their own responsibility for their own lot, if you will.
Yeah.
Which is where I think maybe that metaphor comes from, your lot in life. I don't know.
Maybe, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Or the straw that you drew. I don't know, something.
Yep.
Yeah. So they needed people who understood the land they were in too, right? Who understood the seasons and had the wisdom that they lacked because they had never lived there before. And so, you know, they met the famous, we call him Squanto. He was the famous Indian from the Wampanoag. I'm going to get that tribe.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Wampanoag. Yeah. Anyway, that guy,
Yeah.
Squanto, who literally taught them how to live in the new land. And so no family becomes multi-generational by itself.
Nope.
They needed the help of others. And the same thing with every, you know, thriving family office or every generational plan. Every successful multi-generational family has had one thing in common, that they have stopped trying to figure it out by themselves. They sought guidance. They sought help, shared information, built community.
Yeah.
So the do-it-yourself planning, that's the difference, you know, because now we had the DIY, is that what?
DIY.
DIY, do
Yep.
it yourself. Yeah, sorry. But because the independence, that builds that independent pride, but interdependence builds legacy.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing I learned from this story.
Right. It's the humility to say I can't do it alone.
Right. And then again, there was shared responsibility. So for that Thanksgiving, some hunted, some harvested, some cooked, right? Some protected the settlement from invaders and maybe wild animals, you know, whatever. There was a shared responsibility. And Dr. Jaffrey, who we've been quoting in a lot of our recent podcasts, the guy who researched, you know, the 100-year families, he said that families who thrive, they long term, they build a culture of contribution, not consumption. I thought that was an interesting quote.
That is interesting.
That everyone, you know, needs to be taught that you have a role, and it's a valuable role, and we can't do it without you. in that role. We're glad you're there in it, and you're gifted in that, and this is yours. And to learn to value that, the people and the people in those, and that we're not just here to take, we're here to also contribute in some way.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you look at the Israelites and the 12 tribes, like all of them kind of had their own role.
They sure did. Yep.
Yeah. And the community that they were living in.
Right. And especially like if you look like the tribe of Levi.
Yep.
Who they were the one tribe that did not get any land of their own when they went into the promised land, because their role was to take care of the temple.
Yep.
And what we would call, like in the church, like there was the word and the sacrament.
Yep.
Right? They had a sacrificial system that they had to run and operate. And so God gave them instructions. Hey, they're doing this for you on your behalf. You're going to take care of them this way to make sure they can survive and feed their families, because this is their job for generations to take care of. So that people knew their roles, expectations were defined. And, families in a small way, they can do that. That's why we were talking about last week how they would meet and they would share and talk and plan together and share responsibilities. Legacy was a team effort. But the engine behind all that, got something in my throat. The engine, and why we're doing this special episode today, was, like you said earlier, the engine behind it was they operated from this place of gratitude.
Yep.
And that's easy to miss, because if you know there's going to be hardship going into this, and it's not going to just be a straight line of success, you have to anticipate hardship, setbacks, and things not going the way you want all the time.
Yep.
And gratitude has got to be integral into the community process. That, kind of like we talked about last week, mercy should be a non-negotiable. Gratitude, I think, should be one of those non-negotiables too.
Right.
Where, the first Thanksgiving happened at one of the deadliest years in history for them, and they would stop still and they gave thanks to God for bringing them here.
Yep.
And for their new friends they met, and for, learning how to grow crops so they didn't die.
Right.
They've lost a lot of people, but God gave them wisdom, and through others, maybe unexpected places. They were not expecting to find it.
Yeah.
And so the gratitude didn't ignore the pain. It didn't ignore it at all.
Yeah.
It actually gave meaning to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that it comes down to is like the success all comes down to is Christ being magnified and praised in what they're doing, right? It's like,
yeah.
And he was.
Yeah. Exactly. And as a result of that, somehow that moment got captured in the imaginations of those who were fighting for liberty in our country, and eventually becomes this national holiday, right? And the gratitude said, we're going to honor where we came from. We're going to honor God, what he's brought us through, and we're going to honor those who have sacrificed so we could be here. And I can tell you that, families, if we practice this, it really helps strengthen the family bonds and for staying together and being a really strong, cohesive unit. It strengthens our resilience. It can reduce anxiety. It can increase generosity, and it builds unity. And so, maybe, as people gather this year, like I said, it's a mixed bag. Some people don't look forward to coming together. Some people do. We're going to do an episode on, people who maybe struggle with this concept of believing that they could have a legacy because of brokenness and different things. We're going to do an episode on that. And I just want to encourage families today that when you gather, if there is some strife, there might, if there's brokenness or there might be some small things you can do to begin to help repair those rifts. And maybe it's just taking a small moment before the meal just to share something impactful, share why you're thankful. Maybe tell people specifically one-on-one, just sitting down with them and tell them why you're thankful that they're there, for something they've done, because maybe they need the encouragement too. You know, maybe you're lifting someone else up.
Yeah.
And maybe just coming alongside someone and saying, I don't know what the future looks like, but we're in this together. We're going to keep moving forward. And to plant the seeds anyway, even if it might feel a little bit uncomfortable at first or whatnot, maybe just take that first step. You might be amazed at what might happen at that meal if you just take one small step, what others might do in response. And you might find yourself saying, man, that was one of the better Thanksgivings and conversations we ever had. Right? Just to take a small step.
Yeah.
But to remember that, as you celebrate that holiday, you're part of a long legacy of people who have been celebrating this holiday and giving thanks for this great country we get to live in.
Yeah.
And the fact that we get to have this holiday. And to thank God for what he's given us. And there's a lot of people who have given a lot more than we ever have in order that I can sit down and eat that big meal with my family. And that's an amazing gift, because it is a gift and a blessing.
Yeah.
And so as long as we steward it that way. So it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't mean we have everything figured out. But it's a great time to remember to operate in that part, like you said, of your brain that launch that thankfulness and that gratitude.
Yeah.
And just watch the power of what it could do in your family or home this holiday season. I'm looking forward to it. I know we're going to have a lot of people around our table. We like making our table as long as possible. Might get it down the hallway,
Right.
Eventually.
Eventually, we'll have to add an addition to the house or something.
Yeah, and which would be great.
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have. We like a long table, and I'm looking forward to seeing your grandparents and all of you guys with our busy schedules. It'd be nice to be able to slow down for a few hours and be able to see everybody. And I think we'll even have some friends that probably stop in.
We always do at some point. Yep.
We always do. And there's plenty to go around. So I just, I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm thankful for everything we've gone through this past year. I'm thankful for this podcast. I can't believe that this is episode 39.
It's incredible.
It is.
39 weeks.
39. Yep. And, I feel like it's been great. We have something to say, and hopefully it's, planting seeds for people, and who knows in the years to come, who it'll help. But I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for the man that you're becoming and have become, and everything God's doing in your life. And I'm really thankful we get to do this together. It's really meaningful. And so if this episode meant something to you, could you do us a favor and hit that like button, maybe the subscribe as well, and maybe leave a comment, something you're thankful for this holiday season. And, from our family to yours, we just want to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving and a great holiday.